Welcome and thank you for joining us. This is Hex and Harmony, and today we are talking about sacred space. What it is, what it means to us in our practice, how we create it, and all that jazz.
So for me, sacred space is, something that's set aside, something that is, it's not your normal space, like, not like the kitchen or something that's set aside for a particular purpose. And, sacred is the etymology that leads to the word secret. So it's something that's supposed to be set aside, something that's supposed to be, honored and revered, and, you have to be mindful of who you let know about your sacred space, because energy follows intent, so you don't want certain energies or certain people who may have different views to, you don't want their energies to, for lack of a better word, contaminate your space.
That's the word that was in my head. Is you don't want them coming and contaminating everything.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. For me, there are different degrees of sacred space. And we have sacred space because we talked about altars, and just having an altar in a place makes it a sacred space. Not only because of the symbols that are on your altar and the tools that are on your altar, but because of the energies that accumulate there, when you're doing your work or your devotion, it just, automatically creates a sacred space around your altar. And then there's the kind of sacred space that you consciously create during ritual, or when you're casting a circle, when you consciously go through the physical motions of clearing your space. And just like Belit said, it's, you want a clean and safe space,
right,
to practice your craft. And for those people who invite their deity into their space, you don't want to bring them into a messy house, basically.
Right.
And to me, that is why sacred space is so important.
And I agree with all that. For me, sacred space, like Belit said, is a space that's set apart for sacred work, something other than the mundane. Like if I'm just
Right.
gonna cook or something, just a regular mundane cooking, and don't make sacred space in my kitchen, whatever.
Right.
But if I were going to do some kind of kitchen witchery type of thing, I would want to make that space a little more sacred than everyday normal cooking. But for me, in terms of my practice, I set sacred space generally, for the most part, by lighting a candle, at least one. Sometimes one. It just depends on what I'm doing. And that's generally all I do to create sacred space. I do cleanse my space, but that's separate than making it sacred. As you said, Tegan, having an altar, that's a sacred space because it's set aside for that work. But to consciously create sacred space for a specific thing, I generally do that just by lighting a candle. And that's one of the Jewish things, too, because our weekly Shabbat starts on Friday night with lighting candles. And then it ends on Saturday night with a ritual that involves, among other things, lighting candles. And that the Saturday night when we're doing that, when we're ending Shabbat, it is a time that is dedicated to formally marking a return to the mundane. And then we look forward again to the next Friday night when we light candles and welcome in Shabbat then as well. So that's what we do every week for that. And then all of our holidays are marked with lighting candles at the beginning of the holiday as well. So that's carried over into my practice as a whole, whether it be the Jewish side or the not specifically Jewish side. Whenever I'm doing a working of any kind, I start by lighting a candle, because for me, that's what makes my space that I'm working in sacred.
Right. That's actually very cool. And I mean, as you guys know, I'm a writer also. And when I sit down to write, not all the time, but a lot of times when I sit down to write, and I'm trying to have a very focused writing session so I can finally just finish this chapter or whatever, I'll light a candle a lot whenever, because it just kind of centers my focus and puts me in a more calm mood. And I feel like I get energy from that candle to help me focus and help
And
me
you do. I mean, you
concentrate
think
in
of it,
life.
you have this ritual of simply lighting a candle, and then the energy of that flame, the fire, it transforms the space that you're in. So of course it gives us energy. I just love that imagery that you said that, and it just popped into my mind. Of course it does. It's fire, and fire is energy.
The spark of creativity. And even the smell of certain candles.
Right.
Just the aroma, the aromatherapy of the whole thing. It raises vibrations in your space. And I mean, all of those things just kind of build up to sacred space, whether it's sacred space for worship or spell work or just creativity.
Yeah, I use candles too. I feel a certain kind of way if I don't light at least one candle every day.
It really does make a transformative difference. Just that act of lighting a candle. I keep saying that, but it's a small thing. But that's the thing about this. We don't have to have these big, huge rituals, and there's nothing wrong with those. They have their place. But you don't have to have that if that's not an option for whatever you're doing or wherever you're at the moment. If you can light a candle, that's just in and of itself is so transformative.
Right. You don't have to always have the elaborate rituals that people talk about. Magic is very simple. It at its heart, it is very simple, and you don't need all the trappings.
I mean, really, I don't even have to have a candle. I'm of the belief that it's all mental and it's all in my mind. But man, a candle sure makes me feel better. So, I like crystals too, and I like herbs and everything too. But if I didn't have any of that, and I just had a candle, that would be great. And if I didn't even have the candle, I could still make magic and whatever. But the candle is not. It gives an external thing to focus on, because even though I don't need it, sometimes it's nice to have something external to focus on and not have it completely in my mind all the time.
Right. And you mentioned that preparing the space to become sacred and cleansing the space was something separate. So what do you do to prepare your sacred space, to get ready to create sacred space?
Well, cleansing the area can be anything from getting ready for sacred space, or just for, in general, I need my space clean energetically, whatever. So, but I do the same thing regardless of what it's for. And I mean, there's a whole lot of things I do. Sound healing, a lot of times ringing bells or whatever, singing, shouting, whatever, just making noise and getting energy moving through sound is a good way to do it. Or smoke clearing as well. I do that sometimes, not all the time. It depends on where I'm at, whether I'll do that. But Reiki, if I'm somewhere that I don't have access to tools, or I can't just ring a bell or start singing or whatever, if I'm somewhere else, and that's just not socially acceptable at the moment for whatever reason. Then Reiki, because that can be done and it's not going to necessarily draw attention to what I'm doing. So I can do that without people noticing it. So that's a down low way that I cleanse my space and clear the energy without people being aware necessarily of what I'm doing, which can be a safety thing depending on where I'm at and who I'm with.
Right.
Just
Right.
I don't necessarily want to draw attention to it for whatever reason.
Right. I'll tell you, when I was working in corporate America, what a lot of times what I would do is I worked in a customer service center, and we'd get a lot of angry customers on the phone, or just
I'm sure
distraught customers, and that really brings a bad energy into your day.
Yep.
One thing that I would do, I haven't really done that very often now, but I would, when I had the opportunity at home, collect rainwater.
Yes.
And just put a little bit of rainwater, like in a little spray bottle, just a little, like a perfume atomizer bottle that makes a really fine mist, and just add a few drops of lemon juice, or, usually I use lemon juice, but, essential oil or something like that, and just spritz it, around my area to lighten up the energy if I had a really bad experience at work, or if things were just not going well at work. Just cleanse my area, and lighten up the vibrations around me. And that actually was very helpful, as long as you're doing it with intent.
Exactly.
It works,
What about you, Bailey?
As far as preparing my space, like you said, it depends on, what you're trying to do or what you're attempting to do. Sometimes it's just, light a candle, but, I agree with you, clean your space, make sure everything's clean, depending on how deep I want to go, take a shower or do a spiritual bath or something like that. And I also almost always light incense with my candle, because I think that's important also, along with the flame, with that energy, but also the air energy through the use of the incense. So those are the two things that I do. And I agree with sometimes if you're doing something in the kitchen, like I said, clean that space before you go in the kitchen to do whatever. I was blessed. I found these mugs that have peace written on them for my tea. So
That's wonderful.
Peace infused in my tea or water or whatever I'm drinking. So I do a lot of tea magic. So.
That is awesome.
I love that reminder that having words on something as simple as the mug that we're drinking out of infuses what we're bringing into our body with the energy of that word. So, that's beautiful.
That is. I've got all kinds of ideas swirling in my head
Me
now.
too.
Very cool.
Who else has an altar? Do you have an altar? Everybody has an altar?
I don't right now, but that's because I don't have a need for one in my life right now for what I'm working on. So, I mean, I kind of do, I guess, but it's not like a traditional altar. It's more like something that I carry around with me. So I guess it's more a talisman, whatever, than an altar. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a permanent one set up right now anymore, because I just don't have the room for it right now.
I don't have that either, so.
I kind of, because of my writing and stuff like that, and I consider my desk my altar. in a way, even it's kind of non-traditional, but, I treat it as if it were an altar. I try to keep it clean all the time. I have tools that I have to keep with me. But, if I will set up an altar if I'm doing some kind of work where I feel like I need one, or if I'm doing some kind of very elaborate working or spell, I will set my altar up. And a friend of mine.
That's kind of what I do too. When I'm working on something specific, I'll have an altar for that, but I don't necessarily have a permanent one.
Yeah, I used to have, it was actually a walk-in closet, but it was a pretty big walk-in closet, and just that whole closet was my sacred space. And, I could open the door, my altar was set up in there. I had little hangings all around on the walls in there. It was actually very nice. I kind of miss that, but I just do not have the room for it here.
Man, that sounds beautiful, though. I want to do that. That's hashtag goals.
It was nice because if someone was coming over and I did not want them looking around at my altar, all you've got to do is close the door.
Close the door. Yeah.
It's very private. So a friend of mine asked me the other day if I set my altar in a specific direction, because a lot of different traditions will teach, your altar should always face the north, or your altar should always face the east, or whatever. And he asked me about my space, and I said, well, it really depends on what I'm trying to do.
Right.
And I will set up the altar consciously in a specific direction for what I'm trying to accomplish.
I'm sitting there like, I would be thinking, man, your altar might have to face the east, but mine don't.
Right.
I know.
I might face the east if I wanted to face the east, but it don't have to face the east.
I know. Right. What about the south and the west? Don't you think they're going to get pissed off? Don't pay them some attention.
Like that.
Right.
4 directions, and we all have valid uses.
Right.
Exactly.
Maybe your altar has to face the east, but mine has to face how I want it to face.
Right. Today it's going to face the east, but that may not be what it's going to do tomorrow.
But then again, I am so non-traditional in everything I do, and I'm like, there are no rules. It's what works for me.
What works best,
yes, I am a religious person, and I do have a religious practice that I follow, and so there are things from that I do and I follow, but there are also things within Judaism that I don't necessarily follow, because there are different forms of Judaism, and I don't prescribe to every bit and piece of it, and I do prescribe to the things that work for me and that I choose to take on for myself, and as religious as I want to be with it. And then there are other aspects, because I was not raised Jewish, I was not born Jewish, I converted to Judaism, so I do have this spiritual heritage from my physical ancestors, and I still honor that in ways too. But I mean, what works for me works for me. I don't have to do, there are no rules. That's why I left what I was born into, because of the rigid rules. And I'm like, that doesn't work for me.
Yep. You're preaching to the choir now.
Right.
Yep. Right.
But that's why I'm like, maybe your altar has to face the east. Like, golly, my altar ain't.
Right.
And if you tell me it has to, I will make sure it follows the west.
Exactly. I was going to say, if someone told me your altar has to always face the east, I would literally build one facing west just to spite them.
Yep.
I mean, I don't like people telling me what I should always do or what I have to do. I dig my heels in.
Not here for that. Not here for that. That's one of the reasons, just one of many, that drew me to Judaism, because it is a religion of questioning. It is all about questioning what the tradition says and studying it for yourself and coming to something. Yes, there are sages, there are teachers, there are accepted understanding of things, but it doesn't mean that if you question it, that something's wrong with you, or that you don't have faith, or your religion is wrong, or whatever. We're encouraged to actually study and find out for ourselves and come to a conclusion. And I find that, as an intellectual person, extremely beautiful. And that was one of, like I said, many things that drew me to that, because it's not, Judaism isn't the only tradition or the only path that encourages studying and questioning, but it's one I was drawn to, and that was one of the reasons. So,
yeah. And I'd never heard that about Judaism before. That is very cool.
yeah, I mean, and like I said, there's different beliefs and whatever, different paths within Judaism, and some may not be as open as others, but as a whole, the religion is very open to people questioning and whatever. And so, yeah, I love that.
So I'm going to ask this question, and I'm regretting it already because I don't have an answer for it.
Those are the best kinds of questions.
Right.
If there was one tool on your altar that you could not live without, like this one main tool that you had to have, what would it be?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because, like I said a few minutes ago, I think I can do it all with my mind. It's all mental and with my intention and my will. And while the tools are great and I love them and whatever, if my life changed and something were to happen and I were to lose everything, I could still continue on my path and I could still make magic even without the tools.
Right. I agree.
But if I had to choose one that I like, I don't know, let me think about that. Like, if I had to consciously get rid of everything except one, I'll think about that and I'll let you know. Somebody else try to answer now.
I agree with you. There's nothing that I have to have, because I can do it myself. But
I guess if I had to consciously choose to get rid of everything except for one thing, I would choose to keep candles and get rid of everything else, just because I like those the most, and because of everything they symbolize within my personal path and with Judaism as a whole, I would say candles. But again, even if I didn't have that, I could still, make sacred space. I could still work magic, whatever. I don't have to have them, but they are nice. They would be the one thing that I would choose to keep if I had to give up everything else.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I mean, like I said, I don't know the answer either. There's nothing.
So hard. That's like, what's your favorite book? I'm a librarian. I have no one favorite book. It's like my favorite book today.
Right, today is
really. Really, that's definitely understandable. I don't either. I mean, there's nothing that I can think that I have to have. I mean, I guess my crystals would be something that I would want to have.
Oh, I want to have them too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to voluntarily give them up. But, if I had to give up everything except for one thing on the pain of death, like I was going to die if I didn't give it all up, I would give up crystals in favor of candles, but,
Yeah.
So, do y'all do, like, drawing circles and calling the quarters and that kind of thing in your practice?
Yeah. Like for ritual.
Yeah.
The Sabbats, and if I'm doing some kind of very elaborate working, I will draw a circle and call the quarters and do an invocation and, invite deity to come and lend their energy and their blessings to my work and stuff like that. I do.
I generally don't, because my practice is, other than when I'm like at temple or something for actual Jewish stuff, my practice is pretty solitary. And I mean, if I get together with other people and we're doing a ritual or whatever, then yes, we generally do. But for the most part, in my own practice, no, I don't.
Yeah, no, I'm strictly solitary also, and I just do the circle all by myself. I don't need anybody else to help me.
I don't need anybody. It's just not part of my own personal,
Yeah.
practice. But I do it with other people. On the rare occasion I'm working with somebody else, and it is a rare occasion because it's generally something they do in their practice. So then I participate in it. But
Right. Right. It's not a daily occurrence, but like I said, on the Sabbath, and not even every Sabbath, to be honest, kind of become a lazy witch. but I will do it when the need arises and, time everything and do all my due diligence and all my planning and draw a circle and call the quarters. And, if I'm doing something that's to me really, really important and that I really, really want to get right, then I do go through all the elaborate stuff.
I do on occasion. I used to a lot. I don't know how often I used to do it a lot, but as I've grown and progressed on my little journey, I don't feel the need to always, because, I'm solitary also, so I just pretty much all my space, all my, but for like something major, I probably, well, no, I won't say probably, I might. It just depends. I just pretty much flow. If spirit calls me to do it, if not, it is what it is.
so how do y'all do your drawing a circle and everything?
Well, for me, because I'm a solitary, I'm doing it by myself. It doesn't need to be elaborately large. So I, stand in the center. I usually have my altar in the center and facing, like I said before, whatever direction it is that I really need help from that day.
It's got
And
to be the east.
and I will start with clearing the space first, whether it's with just a regular broom, sweep out the energy, do some smoke clearing with incense to cleanse the space, ring a bell or a chime, like you said before, just clear the space. And I will draw the circle energetically with my athame, cut the circle, just, not like physically cutting anything, to draw the circle maybe 3 or 4 feet wide, however big I need it just for me to move around inside. And, I will call the quarters. For me, and this is very personal to me, and I will share it, because like I mentioned before, probably my belief is, I follow the Welsh deities and stuff like that. The guardians of the quarters, I will call them, and in my mind, and I think in their energy, they do appear as dragons. And so I call the dragon of the east, the dragon of the south, and then the west and the north. And, ask them to guard me and guard my circle and guard my energies, lend me their power and their protection while I do this work. And, declare the circle open. and then I will do an invocation to deity if there's any specific god or goddess that I want help from, or, that I'm asking for help from, and do the work. And then for the closing, I do go backwards around and, thank the god or goddess, and then thank the guardians, release them, tell them they're, welcome to stay or go, whatever they want to do, and declare the circle open.
If I do that, I have my little specific tools that I use. Got my favorite crystal tools. So, clean the space, clean myself. Center. I have my specific alchemy, which doesn't follow the rules because mine is shaped like a Sith as opposed to double straight-edged device. So, but I use that because that's what works for me. And, I make sure at the time when I was doing it often, all my stuff was with me. So it's a matter of bringing it all within reach and then drawing my circle, homage to the directions, whoever needed to be there to make their presence known. Got my candles and my incense going. Do what needs to be done. Do what needs to be done. Do what needs to be done. And close out. I do the same, opposite direction, closing out. That's what I do. And you do that?
When I do it, it's generally something similar to what Tegan described. Sometimes, if on the very rare occasion, because I won't say I've never done it for myself, I will sometimes just use a crystal and draw a circle around myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I use to create the energetic circle. But, I have done it as far as with other people having a circle of salt that is around the perimeter of where we're working or whatever. But, just different ways. But for the most part, like I said, I don't do it anyway. But on the off occasion that I have, it's usually using a crystal wand to draw a circle around myself. And then to release it, drawing the circle back the opposite direction. And I don't follow it. It has to be open with going this one direction and closed going the other. It's whatever I feel like doing at the time, depending on what I'm working, the kind of work I'm doing. So, yeah.
I do always open clockwise and then close counterclockwise, simply because, I guess, habit.
Nothing wrong with habit.
But I do follow that, but I can't stand, this is just like a pet peeve of mine, and I don't want to offend anyone, but I just, Widdershins, what the hell is that? Is that a word? I mean, come on.
That's counterclockwise, isn't it?
Yes, it's backwards, basically, okay. I think. But just, making up those nonsense words for it, I don't agree with,
Well, I'm sure they're not nonsense.
That's not a Gaelic word, an old Gaelic word?
I would have thought it was.
I think it is. I think it is, but like I said, I don't know. It's a pet peeve. It drives me crazy. We're not speaking Gaelic.
Right. Not anymore, but,
But we could.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't tell me I can't speak Gaelic. I'll do it just to piss you off.
Exactly. I try to speak Welsh, and it is just such a difficult language. I would not even
Oh my
attempt for
gosh.
it
So
because
difficult.
it is. Gosh, it's very, very difficult. So I wouldn't even try Gaelic. But you're right. Now that you mention it, Widdershins, I think might be an old Gaelic word.
I have to look that up for next
Yeah, somebody's gonna have to look it up.
Yes, for sure.
Maybe somebody listening will know and they can let us know. They can email us or somehow
Drop
leave
it in
a
the chat.
message. Whatever, wherever you're
Comments.
listening to this, if you know the origin of the
Right.
word Wittershin, contact us and let us know. And we'll give
Right.
you a shout out on the episode.
Yes, and I'm sorry. I said I don't want to offend anybody. So, I mean, it's just me. Maybe I'm associating it with certain people that I knew in the past. Maybe that's why it's got bad connotations for me. So,
That
Get
could
it.
be. So I think that's
Oh.
going to wrap us up for this episode. I learned a lot from you all. So, yay. And I've got lots of ideas for incorporating new methods into my sacred space. So,
Right.
yay.
yes, I learned a whole lot too, and it was a fun talk with you guys.
This really was a fun
Absolutely.
one.
Yep.
I mean, not that the last one wasn't fun, but I think we're getting more of our groove now with episode 2 and whatever, just chatting instead of having one person speak, then the next person speak, then the next person speak. This feels more like, you know,
More like a
Harmony.
conversation.
yes, a conversation.
Yay, harmony.
And what we
Harmony.
intended when we decided to start this whole thing anyway. So for those of you who are following along from the very beginning, yeah, this is just a better episode, I do believe. So.
Yeah.
But anyway, like anything, you do it long enough, you get better at it. Not that we've done it long enough, because this is the second episode.
Well, the best is yet to come.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
That's right.
We just get better with every one we do.
Exactly.
So that's a wrap for this time, and we will see you again at the next change of the moon.
Yeah.
Namaste.
Peace out.